Hi, Matt with eTrailer. If you have a 2024 Chevy Silverado 2500 and you're looking for something for those more work situations where you need a ladder rack that's going to be able to get your lumber, your ladders to clear your cab, then the Thule TracONE ladder rack is going to be a great option for you. So let's check it out. It's not just going to be great for those longer items too, it's going to be great for anything that you're trying to save space on, because while you do have a pretty big bed back here, if you want to double the amount of space that you can really utilize, this is going to help you do that and give you even more space because we'll be able to clear your cab now too. Now, I also like this one specifically because it's just a lot nicer than some other options out there. It just gives us more of a clean finish and it's really easy to work with. Now this is going to be a pretty simple system. It's just going to come in a few parts. Up top we're going to have our load stops. Then we're going to have our crossbars, the towers, and then our clamps. But let's focus on the crossbars and the load stops. So these load stops won't take any time at all to use. You just loosen up this knob and you can slide this up and down on this tray and then tighten it back up. We're also going to have a few tie down points on the very top and through this hole so you can secure your loads down that way too. And that's going to be sliding down via this T-channel. That T-channel is also great because if you have any T-channel accessories, if you want to use this for more recreational uses, you can use that for that too. And the reason that T-channel is important is because if you want to use any clamp-on accessories, this is a pretty thick bar, so that channel is just going to give you more opportunities to mount gear. Now this is also going to be kind of rounded at the edges. That's just going to help it be more aerodynamic. We're going to have an additional T-channel underneath, and that's what's going to be used to grab onto your tower. What I like about this tower is it's a very sleek design. There's not much to it, very narrow, so it's not going to stand out too much. And at the very bottom, we're going to have this very simple design here too. We're just going to have this one groove that goes through the center, and that's what's going to be used to attach your clamps to. And what's nice about those clamps, there's not a whole lot to them. They're just going to be the C clamp that has a bolt that goes through the bottom to secure this to your rails, and we're going to have this rubber padding underneath it just to make sure you don't scratch anything up on your bed if you ever want to take this off. What's also great about the way this clamps down is it's going to be a universal fit. So that means a couple things for us. The first thing is we don't have to make any modification or drilling to our bed, so that's really nice. And on top of that, we can really mix and match where we want to place this on our roof. So if we want one of these towers to come in a little bit, we can adjust that just in case it's in the way of something else in your bed. Let's get a few measurements just to see how this is going to sit on our roof. So the first measurement I want to get is the total height it adds. This, just with the crossbar, is going to be 26 inches. And if we add our load stop on top of that, that's going to add another 5 inches to make 31 for a total, which isn't too bad. That's going to be above your cab. What I'd also recommend is if you're going through any low clearance areas, just make sure you take the total height of this, anything on top of that too, just so you know what areas you can make it under. A spot to really think about would be a garage. We also want to consider what's underneath our crossbars too. So if I measure here from the bottom of our bed, this is going to be a little bit under 45 inches. So that's going to be pretty good. You have plenty of space underneath here. Anything extra tall, like maybe a fridge, might not fit here. So that's something to consider. If that is an issue for you, I would recommend checking out another version of this TracONE. There's going to be another version that has a track system that you can actually push or pull forward the crossbars themselves. So you can actually make them close together right next to each other, so you can fit those taller items in your bed still. And speaking about what you can do or other variations you can check out, I'd recommend checking out the one of these with a cantilever. Because if you have anything extra long like lumber, then that's going to help support that over your cab. But if you already have a roof rack, you can mix and match that with this too. You just need to make sure your roof rack is about 5 inches so you can kind of make a platform on top of your vehicle. And it's going to have a pretty decent weight capacity of up to 800 pounds. I just recommend you just check what your bed is rated for. And this shouldn't exceed what your bed's rated for. I say this more in case you have a lot of heavy gear back here and you're wanting to pair this with a maxed out rack of 800 pounds. You might exceed it, so just be careful and just check. In my opinion, I think this is a solid choice for the reasons I said earlier. It's going to give you a very clean look on the back of your truck. It's really easy to work with, and there are a few other variations if this isn't the exact one that you need. Like I said earlier, if you have a lot of taller items, this might get in the way of. We have some that can slide down on some trays to get out of the way. And if you have those extra long items for lumber, then there's another version of this that comes with a cantilever. But I think this is a great in-between option if you don't really need those special case scenarios. Now, if you're curious to see what the installation looks like, because there's really not too much to it, we do give a lot of tips and tricks that kind of help that process be a lot easier. If you are curious to see that, just stay tuned. We'll walk through the process. The first thing I like to start off with is just laying everything out. So I'm going to have all the parts. Right here, we're going to have our crossbar. We're going to have the rubber pads that go underneath your towers. And we're going to have the clamps and some of the hardware that goes along with it. Along with that, we're going to have the load stops. And here's what your tower is going to look like. I also like to orient it in the way I'm going to put it on my bed. So making sure that this platform is facing towards the inside of your bed and the wording is facing on the outside of the vehicle. You're also going to need a few tools, so I recommend just grabbing a tape measure and then some Allen keys. And I'll go over the exact sizes once we get there. I'm going to start with my crossbar and we're going to remove our end cap. To do that, we're going to grab a 3 16th Allen key, find this bolt at the very end, and you're just going to remove that. Once this is removed, we can start sliding in our towers. And the best way I think to do that is just to leave it kind of in this orientation. Now you're eventually going to probably reach a point where this is just kind of going to keep turning. So if you just come over here, you can try wiggling this out. If it doesn't, flip it over. You might just need to thread that with your hand just a little bit. It should come right out. We can grab that later. And now I got this lift up a little bit higher just so it's easier for me to work with. And when I mount my towers into this channel, I want to make sure I start with the passenger side so I don't have to remove each end cap. The way you're going to do that is you're going to have these little metal blocks here, and that's just going to slide into that portion right there. So when you do this, you also want to make sure that you don't put it on backwards. So if I put it on in this orientation, you can notice the words are here, and that would be on the inside of this. We want to make sure they're facing out. Those blocks are going through that channel. You kind of grab the head of your bolt to help guide that through. And if this feels just a little bit too tight for you, you could just loosen up that bolt and it should be easier. Same thing with the other one. Making sure those platforms are facing the same direction, and we're just going to guide that through. And from here, you just flip it over, and you can roughly place it on your bed. Once you have this up here, you also want to make sure it's in the right orientation. Like I said earlier, you want to make sure the bases are facing towards the inside of the bed. And we're going to grab these rubber pads. We're going to put this under each base, sliding it under just like this. Once that's there, you want to make sure this is flush against your bed rail and is in the same spot on either side, so it's squared off. And how you can check that is by grabbing that measuring tape and finding one location that's going to be the same on either side of your bed. So what I like to do for the rear side is just use a stake pocket. We'll measure from that stake pocket to the edge of our base and make sure that's the same on the other side. Something else to check too is going to be the overhang of your crossbar. We want to make sure this isn't hanging over too far on one side, so you can just come by to the edge of the tower, to the edge of your crossbar, find that distance, make sure it's the same. If you need to adjust, you can simply just tap on one side and push it over. Everything is where we want it to sit at. So now we just need to make sure we cinch it down. The way we're going to do that is with this clamp. So you're going to have two per side. And the way this is going to work is you're going to have this bolt on the bottom side. We'll loosen that up so it kind of opens up this gap some more. We're going to have this middle plate that is just going to sit right on top of the bolt. And the best way to do this is to kind of pivot it at an angle, reach around, and slide it into this groove. Then you're just going to push down on it as far as you can. And from here, we're just going to check a few things. We're going to make sure there's nothing impeding us from cinching this down. So right now, I got a tab in my way. I'm just going to slide that over a little bit where I have more of a flat surface to tighten this on top of. Just about hand tighten that. Once that's kind of hand tightened, we're going to grab the second clamp and install that too. And what we're watching out for during this process is to make sure that these aren't too close. So there needs to be at least a minimum of 3 inches. So the best way I like to do this is just try to keep them as far apart as possible. That's just going to ensure that this is more stable. Once we got everything in place, we can tighten it down the rest of the way. And sometimes you will kind of want to slide around on you. You might need a hand on it just to adjust it. But it shouldn't take too long to do this. And once you have this completed on one side, you can repeat that process on the other. We're going to work our way up to these bolts underneath your crossbars. And this is going to cinch together the crossbar in your tower. And it's going to use the same one as we used for the clamps below. That's going to be a 7/32 Allen key. And there's going to be a total of 4 of these per crossbar. 1 on the inside and 1 on the outside. And we're just going to come up top and we're going to grab those load stops that your kit comes with. And we're going to put them both on the same side. And we're going to make sure that hand knob is facing in on the first one. You might just need to adjust it because we're just using the same type of T-channel. We're going to have a middle block that slides through that hole. Push that across, and this one's going to face the opposite side. And once you reach this point, then we're going to finally put this end cap back into place with that same bolt we had earlier. And we just need to make sure we tighten these down. So you just find the right location you want this to sit at. So if you want this wider, more in, set it there. And then this is a good point where we can give this a good shake test. And if this feels pretty good, then that will conclude the look at the installation and some of the features of the Thule TracONE Ladder Rack on the back of our 2024 Chevrolet Silverado 2500. I'm Matt. Thanks for watching.